Mike Tomlin spoke to Pittsburgh media with his Tomlin Tuesday presser and talked about the urgency needed to see from his offensive line moving forward. They do understand what they're going through and trying to put things together, but the run game needs to improve for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Joining me to talk about that will be Wesley Uhler on the show. It's going to be a fun episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can find this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube and Odyssey. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. You can download us on all those different podcast apps. If you hit the like button on this YouTube video, it really helps us out. But you can also leave us a 5-star review on Apple to help us out. Joining me today is a good old friend of mine from Steeler Nation Radio. You've heard him all over the airwaves. My man, Wes Uhler, is in the building. How you doing, Wes?
I'm great, buddy. First time I've done an episode of Locked On with you where we have been live in living color here. So this will, I had to make sure I got the hair right and everything. This is additional pressure now, baby. I love it.
I didn't think about that because everyone talks about how fantastic your hair is, which it always is, and it still is right now. But
it's a bit of a blessing and a curse, because when Arthur Moats runs around and calls you good hair to everybody, it's like you don't want to be seen out on a bad day. And I'm in my 30s now, Chris. I can't really just roll out of bed with it anymore. It takes a little time now. But no, buddy, I'm happy to be here. Always excited to talk a little football with my guy.
Absolutely. Let's dive right into it. Now, Mike Tomlin addressed the media saying, when to talk about the run game, there were lots of questions. I was there at the Steelers facility for their noon presser that he always does on Tuesdays. There were about like 4 or 5 questions in a row about the run game because everyone knows. Art Rooney, the team owner, said in the offseason that there will be improvement. They hired a new offensive line coach. They drafted Najee Harris in the first round. They, have basically a whole new starting offensive line next to Chukwuma Okorafor. Lots of changes were made, but right now they rank 31st in rushing, and that's not the improvement that you wanted. Technically, it is one spot up from 32, but
can only get better from there.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing, Wes. Mike Tomlin said, we're sensitive to the challenge that those guys are going through because, again, you got 2 rookies in the offensive line. You got a group of guys that have never played together, and you also have a group that didn't get to play together that much in camp. We talked about that a lot on SNR all throughout training camp about how this group was already kind of behind the 8 ball with being a new group with a lot of unproven guys. But now you get that, and you didn't get to have a full training camp to get some war stories together and build that chemistry. Is this a real sense of urgency that has to change right now if this team wants to have the season it wants? Or do you think, Wes, there's a chance that the Steelers still could kind of find ways to win games like they did in Buffalo without this offensive line being a cohesive unit?
Yes, they can find ways to win. But, man, that's a tough ask, especially when your defense is as banged up as they are right now. And I'm sure you want to talk about that eventually, so I'll leave that for later.
We'll get to that in like the second segment.
And particularly just that's the way the NFL is in the year of our Lord 2021, right? Like, you have to be able to score points. Even if you have a great defense, you still have to be able to score points. You have to be able to at least control the clock, elongate drives, keep your defense rested. That's another part of this, Chris. In a lot of the themes that kind of look like they've continued from the end of last season, another one is the defense is playing way too many snaps. But again, We'll get to those guys in a minute. You have to find a way to at least make defenses respect the run game. We all know it's not going to look like a Mona Lisa, particularly early in the season. I don't think any of us were expecting the Sistine Chapel, right? But it has to be better than this. It has to be better than 14 rush attempts against the Raiders, a team that is not very good against the run and was missing some key contributors in that department due to injuries as well. I understand the Steelers have fallen behind in their first 2 games, and that always plays into this as well, too. You can't just have a blanket game plan and say we're going to run the ball X amount of times no matter what. That's not what we're all hearkening back to. But you mentioned it with Mr. Rooney. There's a reason why every power player in the Steelers organization, from Art Rooney II to Kevin Colbert to Mike Tomlin to Ben Roethlisberger to replacing the offensive coordinator to replacing the offensive line coach, they all discussed the need to run the football because they know you just have to be able to do that in the NFL. Even, Chris, if you're a team like the Chiefs or the Rams or the Bills, who don't really pretend to care about running the football, you still have to be able to do it. You still have to be able to do it at times when the game calls for it. That's the biggest concern right now. It feels a lot like last season where defenses have just figured out that the Steelers aren't very good at running the ball and they don't have that onus to do it no matter what. That makes it harder to do a lot of other things on offense. You're easier to game plan for. You're more predictable. They don't buy it as much when you do pre-snap motion and movement and things like play action. It's something that they have to get moving in the right direction. They haven't had an effective run game since 2018. Like they have to get that moving in the right direction. Again, I don't expect it to be the Mona Lisa anytime soon, but it's got to look better than me out there finger painting like I'm in kindergarten.
No, but I feel you about that. That's a very illustrative answer there, saying the Mona Lisa or Wes finger painting. We want to see some finger painting from Wes at some point on the show. That actually would be really funny. But in all seriousness, you're exactly right. Like they this can't be perfect, but they got to put together something. And something that I've talked to Jordan DeFigio about the Yins Hers podcast and Helmet.
I finally met her on Sunday, by the way. It was great meeting all the Yins Hers.
Yes, yeah, they are great people, and do subscribe to their podcast. They do an awesome job. But one thing that I've been harping on for a bit is this offense needs plays. And like a group of plays that it can rely on to get key yards, and not like 20 yards, but I'm saying a play that we call this, we're getting 5 yards on the ground.
They don't have an identity in that regard. They don't.
And Wes, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about just that being part of this. Is we need to see if they're ever going to find their identity. It's about finding some of those plays where all 5 of your offensive linemen and the blocking tight ends as well are all contributing and winning at the right times to allow Najee Harris to get going there.
And you know what, Chris, too, you were there with us. You mentioned it at SNR for training camp. Anyone who's familiar with the Steelers, who's been to practices, anything like that, the term 7 shots. You've certainly heard that. If you're a Steelers person, you've certainly heard that. It's a drill that they run in practice almost every single time. It's the offense versus the defense in the red zone, 7 plays. If the offense scores, they get a point. If the defense stops them, they get a point. Best out of 7, right? Simple concept, 7 shots. Chris, they run that almost every day at training camp. You and I were sitting there in the end zone, fortunate enough to have a great look at it almost every single day. What's the one thing they never do in those situations? Short yardage run plays. They just don't. We saw them do some of the stuff, trying to do some different things with Juju and with Anthony McFarland. And maybe you saw that play out on Sunday in that touchdown run that Juju had. But other than that, where have we seen any creativity close to the goal line? Where have we seen any creativity in those short yardage situations? It feels like the Steelers' really only game plan is to try and get the ball to Claypool on early downs. And then if it's third and hopefully manageable, you look for Juju. Like that feels like it's the identity. It's where they're cutting their teeth a lot right now. And if you go back to training camp and you start to connect some of these things, that's a lot of what we saw in those situations, in those possession down situations, in those red zone type situations. It was Ben looking for Deontay or Juju or Claypool. There wasn't a ton of involvement over the middle with the tight ends. There wasn't a ton of usage of the running backs. And so to me, it feels like that to me is mixed messaging because, again, the whole offseason, ever since the Browns wild card loss, from top to bottom, it's been we have to run the football. We have to run the football. The Pittsburgh Steelers never want to be last in the NFL in rush yards again. But I don't really see the onus on that. You have to – it has to be part of your identity. And I don't know what the Steelers – I know what the Steelers' identity is as a team. It's that they have a very good defense, and they need that defense to make plays and force turnovers and get the offense short fields and maybe even contribute by scoring some points. But it feels like the only game plan on the offense is put the ball in Ben's hands and hope that he can find Chase, hope that he can find Deontay and Juju enough to get a couple touchdown drives, and maybe we'll score 21 points and win this game. You can win games like that. They did in Buffalo, but that's not a great recipe to have success in the National Football League in 2021, especially in this division. Very talented, very good quarterbacks, and especially in the AFC and with their schedule, which is very difficult and very loaded.
No, I agree entirely. We're not done talking about this. We're going to revisit this in just a second here. But first, I got to tell you guys about betonline.ag. It's that time of the year again, and all eyes have now turned to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your #1 spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including the $500,000 NFL mega contest and the $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, both open right now at BetOnline. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 100% welcome bonus when you sign up for BetOnline. And check out for all the different promos they might have available. Different promos give you different opportunities and different ways that maybe you can even make your money back if you lose your bet, up to $25. Be sure to check the different promos and the offers when you're looking at all the different games available at BetOnline, which is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football to basketball to boxing, right down to horse racing. Don't wait to take advantage of all their great offers available for the 2021 season at betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. We're also brought to you by Get Upside. Hey, Steelers fans, this is Chris Carter with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about. Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get up to 50% or 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 or $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your bank account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card, or Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Again, that's promo code TOUCHDOWN. Now, keeping it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, I'm Chris Carter, joined by Wes Uhler. You can download this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Wes, back to this identity thing. The Steelers got the Bengals this weekend, and the Bengals are 1-1, just like the whole AFC North is 1-1. So It's kind of hit a reset button after week one. But the Bengals, Mike Tomlin was talking about how their defensive front is a tough group. And how this is going to be a challenge this week. I think a lot of people, when they think of the Bengals, they think of them as the joke they've been for the past several years. But this is a week where, you got the win that people didn't expect you to, but then you had the loss that people were worried that you might have. And now you're in a position where if you want to have the kind of season you have, you got to start off on the right foot.
Yeah.
And avoiding, going 1-2 early. When you got several other big opponents coming up. You got the Packers coming up later in the season. You have the Chiefs. You still got to play the Ravens and the Browns both twice. This game's important. How much of a role do you think either having or not having an offensive identity in this upcoming game will play in the final result?
Oh, it's going to be huge, because let's make no mistake about it, particularly when you consider where the Steelers are at on defense right now with like a half a dozen crucial injuries.
Yeah.
Bengals are going to be able to score some points. Like their defense leaves a lot to be desired. Mike Tomlin had nice things to say about them today, and they have.
I agree. He does that. That's what he does.
What's he going to do? Come out and poo-poo the team they're about to play? They have some nice players. Like I would take Sam Hubbard in Pittsburgh. I would take Bates in Pittsburgh. Like they have some nice individual dudes for sure. But as a defense, they're not where they were in the Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, Vontaze Burfict, Pac-Man Jones days. They're not that type of defense right now. But their offense has some dudes. I mean, they've got some, what did Mike Tomlin call them, Chris? Some incredible eligibles or whatever.
No, that's along the lines of what he said.
But it's true. Joe Mixon is one of the more talented running backs in the National Football League. If you were making a list of your top 10 running backs in the NFL, I bet you Joe Mixon would be in that probably 7 to 11 range for most people.
I'd agree. He's also number 2 in rushing right now.
He's also number 2 in rushing right now. And I realize I just said top 10 and then referenced 7 to 11. All right, leave me alone. All right. And then they have got just a trio of stud wide receivers. Your boy Tyler Boyd, hail to Pitt, the local guy, and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as well too. And we all know Joe Burrow was the number 1 overall pick, national champion, Heisman Trophy winner, impressive last year, even without an offensive line. We know all these things about these guys. They are going to be able to score points. Again, I think particularly if the Steelers end up being as shorthanded as it looks like they could be on Sunday on defense. Hopefully you get Joe Hayden back, maybe Devin Bush back, but we all know now Highsmith and TJ Watt's status up in the air. And of course, there's going to be no Tyson Alualu. Chris, it feels like you're going to have to score at least 24, 27 points to win this game because, again, the Bengals are going to score points. You have to be able to keep their offense off the field, and you have to be able to sustain drives. And it's really hard to do that without running the football successfully. Najee Harris doesn't need 120 yards and 3 touchdowns.
No.
But he's got to have close to 20 touches, and he's got to have at least 70, 80 yards. Or, man, unless the Bengals turn the ball over 2, 3, 4 times, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Steelers. It is. They can score points. The Steelers have to be able to match that on Sunday.
Now, keeping up with Wes here, Mike Tomlin also informed us Tuesday some more injury knowledge. First of all, Ben Roethlisberger does have a pec injury. He said he doesn't know when he got it. He said Ben doesn't even know. It seemed like kind of an attrition thing. But he said that's something that we'll be monitoring. We'll see how that impacts his preparation leading up to the game. So there's that to be considered. But like you said, TJ Watt, groin injury reported from Jeremy Fowler that it's not that serious and that he made it sound like there's a good chance that TJ Watt will play this weekend. That's great news. But he also had Alex Highsmith with a groin injury, and now you're wondering like what's going on with everyone's groins. I think some people
fire the groin coach.
Fire the groin coach. I've seen it. That was pretty funny. But some people are trying to make this out of something. I'm like, it's football. These type of things happen. Look at the Ravens with all the injuries they've had. It's just bad luck a lot of times. It's very rarely is it one thing that's just messing everyone up. There's just sometimes when it piles up and it's the team that you follow and you're like, oh no, why? Woe is me. But then you look around the league and you're like, well, this woe is a lot of people. And again, this is an excuse for the Steelers to, with going through hard times, but it is a reality that they're going to have to work around this. Sunday they lost 4 starters they were expecting to have. And that had a major impact on their game plan. They weren't able to adjust to it in time. I think that could play a role in this game as well if they don't get their guys back. Now, supposedly, like I said, TJ Watt supposed to come in now. Didi Kinkabwala did report that Taco Charlton, former first-round pick edge rusher of the Dallas Cowboys, that he came into town. He's working out, and as long as everything goes well there, he'll be signed to the team's practice squad.
Yeah, did you see what he tweeted?
Oh, I did see him something about terrible towels, right?
He tweeted, I can't wait to see all those terrible towels. So that, again, you never want to assume, but that probably means, I think you're right. Yeah. I think we'll hear some official announcement there soon.
Right. But seeing that, I'm just like, man, how bad is it with Highsmith? Because if you're missing, because here's the thing, you need all 3 of those guys at the same time, in my opinion. The whole point of signing Melvin Ingram was to make sure that him, Highsmith, and Watt were a trio that they could just run on the field and just cause you problems with. And if one of them's down, that's a problem. And if 2 of them are down, that's a big problem.
That's an issue. Yeah.
Right. And once what you once thought was a major asset turns into a liability. So there's still questions there. I want to talk about the defense a little bit with Wes. We'll do that in a little bit here. But first, I got to talk to you guys about DirecTV streams. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another lets you stream your favorite shows, and then you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and then you've got your neighbor's best friends log in for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream. And it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract, so get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. We're also brought to you by Built Bar. If you want a healthy treat that tastes like a candy bar, Built Bar is the protein bar for you. It's the official protein bar for the U.S. track and field team, and it comes in so many different flavors. Whether you want a fruity snack like raspberry, strawberry, orange, or something different like salted caramel, cookies and cream, Rocky Road, or my personal favorite, double chocolate, Built Bar has so many flavors for you to enjoy. The best part, they're all healthy. They range from 130 to 180 calories. They pack 17 to 18 grams of protein, but only have 4 to 5 grams of sugar and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. That's a tasty and healthy snack that'll save you from eating that snack you'll regret later and stay on task with anyone's diet. Order today and get your favorite flavor delivered right to your door by going to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, all capital letters, all one word, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. And as always, Wes, if we do back-to-back ad reads, we don't need to take a break. We just keep it rolling right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's wrap it up talking about the defense a little bit, because everyone talked about the next man up mentality and all the other things, but after a while, when you have several different next men up, you can't be the same group, and it's just a reality. Yeah. I think the Steelers got hit with that reality on Sunday, and again, there's no excuse. The Raiders had plenty of injuries themselves, but this team, this roster was built around this defense being healthy, this defense being aggressive and active, and limiting opposing offenses while the Steelers offense got it together. Buddy, do you think that the Steelers defense could be in for a bit of a rough spell here, or do you think they still have enough? Even if they get let's say they get at least TJ Watt back, but maybe Devin Bush doesn't come back right away. Do you think this defense has the gas in them to kind of run with these next few teams until they get things figured out injury-wise?
Buddy, I hope so, but I'm not overly confident, just because they are hurting at some key positions. It's one thing if we'll survive being without TJ. We'll survive being without Stephon Tuitt for a couple weeks. But as those injuries continue to pile up, like you said, there's a fine line between next man up and we're just decimated right now. And there are a lot of crucial injuries at a lot of critical positions for the Steelers. TJ Watt alone, Chris, a lot of people during the offseason, this was something Arthur Moats and I debated on SNR leading up to his contract. What really was his wins above replacement, right? To use a baseball term. We all know how great TJ is, but how valuable is he actually in terms of wins and losses? I think we could put that argument to rest after Sunday. Yeah. Because my goodness, did Derek Carr look like a different quarterback as soon as TJ Watt was out. He was more comfortable. He was less happy feet. He was more poised and patient in the pocket. That, to me, if I'm TJ Watt's agent, I'm keeping that game tape of Derek Carr for the next time the contract conversation runs around, because he was a different quarterback once number 90 was out of the game. You continue to pile that with Hayden and Bush and Highsmith and Tuitt and Alualu. And you nailed it too. It kind of gets back to where we started this episode as well. I'm going to say it again. We all knew the offense in the run game wasn't going to be a Mona Lisa, wasn't going to be a work of art early on in the season. We knew that the defense was going to have to carry the way. Yeah. We hoped that Ben Roethlisberger, the future Hall of Fame quarterback, with some talented pieces, that they could make enough plays, score enough points early on in the season. Then eventually, by week 7, week 8, week 9, maybe the offense starts to figure it out. And then all of a sudden, then now we're cooking with fire. Now we're rolling. But a lot of that optimism of the offense, giving the offense time, and we all know Ben Roethlisberger said before the season, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be a work in progress. 2 rookies on the offensive line, 4 rookies starting on offense, 4 new starters on the offensive line in total. You need the defense to kind of be that stalwart, like they were in 2019 without Ben Roethlisberger, honestly, right? You need them to set the tone. You need them to win the turnover margin. You need them once or twice a game to give you a short field to work with off of a strip sack or an interception or a turnover on down, something of that nature. That's concerning to me. It really is. Maybe more concerning, honestly, than the lack of the run game right now is how beat up the defense is. Because if the defense can't lead the way for this team, Chris, we talked about it. They don't really have an identity on offense. This isn't Frank Beamer's Virginia Tech in the 90s. You can't win on special teams in the National Football League. They I think, are going to struggle if the defense doesn't get some reinforcements here. Maybe they can get by against the Bengals. Again, that's a really talented offense. But that trip to Lambeau looms large. You saw what the Packers and Aaron Rodgers looked like yesterday. You have to get some of those pass rushers back. You have to get that front 7 back, because that is, Chris, that's the backbone of this team. That's how they're going to have to win games. And if that's not there, I don't know what they hang their hat on in that regard.
I agree. They need to figure this out. 3 of their next 4 games are at home, though they face 3 really. They face 4 teams. All 4 teams have at least 1 games, but it could be challenging. You got the Bengals. You got the Bengals this week at 1 at home. You got on the road to Green Bay. Then you get the Broncos at home, who right now are 2-0 and playing really solid defense, and the Seahawks, where you just need to say danger Russ Wilson, and everyone knows what's going on there. But this is a really big chance for the Steelers before they start that run of who they're facing. This is a really important chance against the Bengals. Get right in the ground game. Like you said, Mike Tomlin hyped up the defensive front, but you can run the ball on that team, and you better run the ball on that team.
And you know what, Chris? Again, that's how all these things work in conjunction. You run the football, you control the clock, you keep your defense off the field. You keep Joe Burrow and all those wide receivers and Joe Mixon off the field. I have a hard time believing if the Steelers don't run at least a dozen more, at least 15 plays more than the Bengals on Sunday, if the Steelers don't possess the ball for at least 6 or 7 minutes more, I have a hard time believing that they're going to win this game unless Cincinnati, again, just absolutely shoots themselves in the foot and has 3 or 4 turnovers. You have
not like they've ever done that before or anything.
Maybe Joey Porter walks out onto the field and there's a couple personal foul calls. You have to be able to control the clock. You have to be able to let your defense rest and keep their talented offense off the field. This has to be the week. Their defense is ripe for the picking in that regard. You have to commit to running the football. You have to give Najee Harris, I think, at least 20 carries. Chris, it has to happen soon, or else I don't know when it's going to happen. It's not going to be magic. The onus has to be there. They can't fall behind early. That's going to be part of this as well, too. But, buddy, you're right. I think we were all kind of saying this time last week, right? We were saying, hey, you were fortunate against Buffalo. Defense made some plays. You got a special teams touchdown. Offense did enough late to win the game on the road against a really good team. You'll take that. But now it needs to look better against the Raiders. It didn't look better against the Raiders. In fact, it looked worse on offense, I would say. There has to be a time where you kind of do a 180 and get that, everyone kind of rowing the boat in the right direction if you want to. And, man, up in Green Bay is a tough task. Against Seattle is a tough task. It feels like Cincinnati, a division foe, that familiarity at home, hopefully some desperation too, maybe a team and an offense that feels like they're backed into a corner a little bit already early in the season. You have to get that mojo. You have to get those vibes moving in the right direction. Or, again, it's going to be an uphill battle to beat the Bengals on Sunday.
So far through 2 games, the Steelers' offense has been on the field for 111 plays compared to Steelers' opponents who have been on the field for 143 plays.
That's a massive difference.
That's 32 plays total, 16 more plays per game. And roughly, that's like the average game the Steelers are getting, 55 plays a game compared to the other team getting like 70. So it's not Chip Kelly at Oregon coaching the other team either, all right? You shouldn't be running that many plays. I don't care how good your defense is, they're going to get worn out. And that's another one of those familiar themes. We've seen a lot over the last 2 years where the Steelers defense has played 55 minutes of great football. And then it gets to the end of the game where they need to make a stop and they're worn down because they played a dozen more plays than the other team and they just don't have the juice left. You can't let that happen, particularly when you're a team that has to win games on defense. Those guys have to be fresh. Those guys have to be rested. You have to at least be able to control the clock, elongate some drives, and let your defense at least be, managed from a snap count. That cannot continue to happen, and it has too much now going on 3 years. That's the whole thing here. We're talking about trying to manage things. We're talking about trying to, cut things off. It's all about establishing that balance to get your defense more time to rest and to put things together. So, Wes, I think you hit it right on the head. That's a great way to end the show because that's what everyone's going to be looking for is finding finding the rhythm and the continuity of the offense. It doesn't have to be superstar offense. Nope. But there's got to be some form of things that you can rely on for that offense to buy you some time. I still say one of the biggest drives of the game was after Juju's rushing touchdown. The Raiders had a 6-minute drive that took off all the time in the first half. If they had punted back and the Steelers had gotten momentum, this is probably a different game.
Yeah.
But again, that didn't happen because they had that drive. So the Steelers,
and it'd be nice to see the Steelers do that to somebody else, right? It'd be nice. It would. Defense gives up a touchdown. All right, fine. Here comes a 5-6 minute drive, heavy dose of Najee. Let our defense recalibrate, slow down their offense. That slipper can go on the other foot too, baby.
Indeed, I think it's a great. But look at you with metaphors today, my man. Look at you. I see you. All right, Wes, we got to let you go here. Thanks so much for coming on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yep. So I'm doing all kinds of radio this time of year. I'm on from noon to 2 with Arthur Moats on SNR, Steelers Nation Radio. You can get that on iHeart app, Steelers.com. Subscribe where you get your podcast, Steelers Blitz. And then I host afternoons on ESPN Pittsburgh at 2 o'clock after Stan Savran as well, 970 ESPN, also on your iHeart Radio app. And you can always follow me on Twitter at Wesley Uhler if you want more beautiful art analogies as the football season rolls along.
And pictures of his finger painting. We want to see the finger painting, Wes. Anyways, thanks so much for joining, Wes. I'm Chris Carter, your host of the Locked On Steelers podcast. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. You can listen to this show Monday through Friday, sometimes Sunday if we get an early post game up, right here on YouTube. Hit the subscribe and the link and the like buttons below. If you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, or anywhere podcast hosts, we thank you. Please leave us a 5-star review with a positive comment on Apple to give us a shout out, and it really helps out the show. And I'll give you a shout out at the end of the show for doing so. Thanks again to Wes for joining us. Back tomorrow with Crossover Thursday. We're talking to the hosts of the Locked On Bengals podcast, getting some inside information from them. I'm sharing some with them as well, and it's going to be a fun time. Again, from Chris and Wes, thanks for listening to the Locked On Steelers podcast. Be back on your screens and in your ears real soon.